little taller. All right, so basically Nancy took most of my best lines, so I'm just gonna stand up here and try to, no. My name is Mike. I'm a teacher for the past 30 years. I worked my whole career in the Bronx. I'm a union chapter leader. I'm a member of the Badass Teachers Association, and we have a lot of the founders and leading members of the Badass Teachers here. And it's not just a group, it's what you are inside. So whenever I get asked to come and represent teachers and speak for them, I do, because unfortunately, we have a lot of teachers who no longer feel comfortable speaking in public forums or speaking out about problems in education. So my rule is whenever I get a chance to talk, I will. So what are some problems in education? I mean, my remarks are basically going to be filled with grit and rigor because, that's basically what they're trying to drill in on us. Privatization has led to all of the problems that we're basically facing. It used to be poverty, right? When you were a teacher, that's what you had to worry about. When you came into schools, like I worked in a Vander Childs High School in the Bronx and Theodore Roosevelt High School in the Bronx. And it was violence and it was poverty, just like the sign says over there. Okay, that was our concern. We had to worry about the kids that were sitting in our classes, getting them through the day, getting them through their lives. Now what do? We worry about high stakes testing. Now those kids that we were worried about, now they're weapons that they're being used against us. Right? It's all about numbers now. It's not about the poverty and it's not about the violence. Are they children anymore or are they test scores? That's what we're wrestling with. After the high stakes testing, then what happened is they had what I like to call the bad teacher narrative. Okay, all of a sudden it became the teacher's fault. So I'm Mike and it's all my fault. So I just like to be clear, and if you're a teacher too, it's your fault too. It has nothing to do with anything else. So we're to blame. And their answer was, multi-layered. The first thing was it's the schools are failing. So, you say, why are the schools failing? Well, are you not funding them? Are you overcrowding the classrooms? Are you putting in mandates that are unfunded and you can't do anything? Like, why are the schools failing? Or were they set up to fail? So you set us up to fail. And then what do? Well, you come in and you make smaller schools, and then you come in and then you make charter schools. So you're taking public money and you're giving it to private corporations, and they're going to say that they're going to do better. Okay, and the real problem that I've been having is that, how do you convince a parent that has been sending their kid to a school like Roosevelt or a school like Evander when they have to worry about their kid getting in and out of that building every day, when they have to worry about if the kid is going to get jumped on his way to school? How do you tell parents that the charter schools are not the answer? You can't just sit there and say, it's privatization and it's corporate greed. They want safety for their kids, okay? So that's a dilemma for me. How do I talk them out of safety for their kids? I'm a parent too. Teachers are parents. We're not eunuchs, So what do you say? What is the argument to convince the 3,000 or 4,000 people waiting online for the charter schools in the neighborhood that is not what they're supposed to do for their kids? We'll get parents that are actually in the charter schools. Get students that are what I call charter school refugees. They were in there. They were automatons. They were test prepped out, okay? And if they weren't cutting it, they were gone. And then they come back to our school, the failing schools, and then we have to nurture them again. Talk to those parents, right? Don't talk, corporatization. Talk why is it better? So, that's a major issue for me, and I've been wrestling with it, ground level speaking. Value-added assessment is also good. So, all of a sudden we became this immensely complicated algorithm to determine, student growth on test scores that we don't really even have any control of the curriculum or the test taking, as both of the people up here had just said. So now we're a number, and all I'm sitting there doing is trying to figure out what my score is going to be this year. I mean, this year I was 77. I don't know what that means, but like I'm Dr. 77 as far as my VAM score, my APPR score. If you don't know what that means, that's our assessment. 40 or 50%. Now it's going to be 50% of our evaluations every year are growth on standardized test scores. So and I wish I could explain it to you, but I cannot. So, I'm 77, and like, I was happy to be 77, because like my friends who were 74, they're like, oh my God, I'm 74. I'm like, I'm 77, you know what I'm saying? So it becomes like where's the numbers? And then of course they say, what is another problem? I mean, Common Core. I mean, just the attempt by the federal government to initiate, a federal education policy led by billionaires like Bill Gates, led by lobbying groups like the Council of Chief State School Officers and the National Governors Association, and, Achieve, another lobbying firm. They come up with these standards, they implement them, and they go, oh, they're state-led. Well, how is this state-led? You know what I mean? It's coming from the federal government with race to the top tax funds. And like we're forced on it. Like literally the way I'm evaluated was changed through budgetary processes and bribery, right? And now it's like, now we have Common Core, which obviously is not working. And it does not matter who steps up to the plate to explain that. Students, principals, superintendents, parents, teachers, we're all one after the other saying it's not working for us. And, you're talking to people like John King, with covering his ears, just standing up there, for pretense sake. So, and then, what are some other problems? I mean, obviously it's educational inequity. I mean, as like, what did you call it? The new Jim Crow. The worst segregation since Jim Crow is coming in major cities like New York and Chicago. The haves and have-nots, the division has grown and grown, okay? And look where it's the worst. Inner cities, communities of color. They are the targeted population for what did you call it, the zealots? I call them deformers, you know what I mean? Because they claim to be reformers, but like I prefer the word reformers, deformers. So, I mean, those are my major issues. Like I said, my entire career, I was a dean of students. I worked in security, and like the biggest problem was trying to protect kids. It was stopping the violence in the school. It was enabling to go to class. Now we don't even discuss that. When's the last time you heard anyone come up and talk about violence in the schools? Lately, I mean, it's test scores. I mean, we live it. We know it. We do. But the deformers don't. So the next part is what are the reasons for this? What are the reasons for all the privatization, high-stakes testing, charter schools, value-added methodology of rating teachers, Common Core? I boil it down to three basic reasons. You have greed and corruption. There are people that want a piece of the public education pie. Okay? After the housing collapse, you had people like Rupert Murdoch come up and say education is a $500 billion business and we want it. So how do you go get it? You go get it by making the teachers bad people, and charter schools, test prep, and then you got the money. Okay, so it's greed and corruption. What's the other reason? Why are teachers being attacked? I mean, it's misogyny, right? It's like we have teachers, 80% are women, okay? Did they attack the police officers' unions? Did they attack the fire department unions? No. Who did they come for? They came for women. It's just another attack on women. So, I mean, so it's misogyny. And, I mean, systemic racism, okay? Just victimizing the victims all over again. Force them into poverty, force them into quote unquote failing schools, and then take them. Make them weapons, make them tools. Okay, so what can we do? What would I like to see done? Right here. This is what I like to see done. More parents, more teachers, more educators and concerned people sitting together, explaining what the problems are, and then getting up and doing something about them, okay? And a lot of people don't know how, or they're scared. So I always figured, and that's why I thank BAT so much, because if they're scared, I'll stand up. I'll come up, I'll be badass, and if they knock me down, somebody else comes up and takes my place. But you need the first person to stand. So we all got to stand. That's why we're here. What else would I like to see? Well, I mean, one of the hardest things for me was, largely schools of color. That's where I taught in my entire career, okay? And then, there's this idea of white privilege. Okay, now I never considered myself racist or privileged at all. Okay, I grew up in the projects, I taught in public schools for 30 years. Okay, but then you're hearing the narrative, understanding white privilege for white teachers, progressive, liberal white teachers. That to me is the hardest crowd of people to get on our side. There's such a feeling of, not me, how dare you? I've taught for 30 years. There was such a shutdown by teachers like myself that, and I needed my friends, and I'm looking at them right now. Because now, once I can understand it, right? Once I know that Black Lives Matter, right? Once I know that, then I can come to my classroom, and then I could teach my students that yes, when you get stopped by the police, I have rights that you don't, okay? If my daughter is in a park shooting a BB gun, okay, the police show up on her, she's gonna get that half a second more than another child is, based on color. And I need to be able to tell my students that, because at the end of the day, when we're talking about poverty and violence, we want our kids home safe. So if we have teachers, and it's, don't internalize blame, just put it off to the side and do our jobs. We need to teach them that there is a division, okay? And if you can't understand that as a white teacher, that you can put that aside and then help our kids, that's why I want to stand up here. That's what I'd like to see. All right, thank you very much. Dr. Hero.
All right.